It's Sunday, late February. It's a beautiful sunny day, but outside it is freezing cold. There is ice, there's mud. It is far too miserable to ride. So, in the slow cooker, I have a pork shoulder going. It's about 2 hours till that's ready. And I've been listening to music by a group called Gangstagrass. May have recommended them to you before. But there's a song in particular, which I'll have linked down below, called Home. And on days like this where it's lovely out to look at, but you're kind of stuck inside, a glass of wine, some tea, it's got me thinking about home and the taste of home, the flavors of home. And in the previous cooking video, I did mention that I would give a tour of the sauces and spices and the flavors that shape my cooking. I wish I can cook for you. Someday I hope that I can. If you're ever visiting the DC area, if we're ever allowed to travel again, look me up. I'll make you something delicious. And anyone who wakes up here gets the best breakfast I can crack out of the kitchen, with whatever I've got. And it's usually pretty good. So, the taste of home. I grew up in the DC area. I was raised by a single dad who had to do everything by himself. He tried his best. He did what I would call typical American cuisine: steak, potatoes, basic spaghetti, nothing fancy. Out of the box mac and cheese. There's nothing wrong with any of that. But I didn't get a chance to really explore cooking until much later, till I was an adult. In a very, very short version, I was in the Army very briefly. It was a very bad decision to go in, but right after I left, someone I met had worked with a family catering company out of Northern Virginia. And the owner of that, Aunt Ruth, not my aunt, but Aunt Ruth, gave me a chance and I needed a job, and she gave me a chance working her catering events. But I got to explore food, and I dove into it. I watched Food Network, I studied, I took notes, I practiced what I saw, and diving into food absolutely changed my life. Growing up with my dad, he would cook his basic stuff, leave it to beaver food is the best way to describe it. The food you'd see on 1950s white American television, but we'd go out a lot too. And there were two other kinds of food in the world growing up. There was Chinese and Mexican. Whether they were actually Chinese or actually Mexican doesn't matter. All my dad knew was Chinese and Mexican. And so we'd go out and get that, but he never made it at home. I found with food, what really changed my life is the improv principle of yes and. Do you want to try that? Yes. And what's that? You may not like everything, but try it. Just try it. Your life will be changed if you just try it. It's okay to not like it, but try it. And so over the years, as I've tried all these different things from Mexican and Chinese food, not Mexican or Chinese food, I have hung on to these tastes and these palettes that I've just found all around me. And I'm spoiled living in the Washington, D.C. area because we have food from around the world. Just great food everywhere. So, as I've explored these restaurants and these flavors, I've scooped up ingredients along the way that now shape my cooking every day. So I wanted to show them to you, and I kind of have them arranged in sort of a east to middle to west setup to kind of to demonstrate these sort of East Asian, West New World flavors that have really shaped my world. And I want to make a moment about authenticity and cultural appropriation. None of these are my cuisines. I wasn't raised with any of these. I don't claim to be mastery of any of them, but the taste of thoroughly influenced how I see the kitchen, and I want to, whenever possible, explore the places that these came from and highlight the people that these came from, because they're fantastic just on their own. They don't need me to highlight. They don't need me to glorify them. They do a great job on their own. So, but there is one thing that I do want to show a little bit later from here that is from my home. Specific flavor profile to this area, the greater DC, Washington DC area. So let's start with the East Asian side, and this is in no particular order. This is just conveniently laid out on my counter. Gochujang. It's Korean. It's a hot, and I do make sort of more mild ones, but you want the hot one. It is a hot, kind of a sweet chili paste. I used it in the tteokbokki. I use it in all kinds of stuff, but you don't want to go crazy with it. A little bit goes a long way, but a little bit adds so much. So, gochujang, I've seen it in sauce, like squeeze bottle form. I get it in the tub. Sweet chili sauce. It is chili peppers, and depending on the brand, sometimes it has a little garlic, a little ginger, mostly sugar and chili peppers. See if there's anything else interesting in here. But you can use this in to add a little bit of heat. This usually isn't terribly spicy, but it does add some kick to it, but it adds a sweetness to whatever you're cooking with. Sweet soy sauce. If you are making a barbecue sauce, even a Western style barbecue sauce, if you're making any kind of sweet smoky glaze, sweet soy sauce instead of brown sugar or molasses, add a good flavor to it. If you like soy sauce, that kind of flavor without the salt, try this. Oyster sauce, made from oysters. Water, sugar, oyster extract, and it adds kind of a seafoody umami flavor to things, that kind of meaty richness, but it's not very strong. So when I tend to cook with it, I tend to really plow a lot into stuff to add to the sauces. So you can be more generous with this. I've had people recommend that you buy a giant can of it and then put it into squeeze bottles to make it easier to use. But I go through a lot of oyster sauce. Regular, good old-fashioned soy sauce. Salt. I love it. Has a lot of salt in it. You can get less low sodium options. And there's a whole world of just soy sauces to explore, and please explore them. You will not be disappointed. Go to, I don't know where you are in the world, we have around here a chain of stores called H Mart, another chain called Lotte. It's I guess more Korean brands, but find soy sauces and try them. Try them all. Lime juice. I call this the plastic lime grenade for probably obvious reasons. This is found as a great complement to cooking from all across the world. It adds a great bit of acid, just like the soy sauce. Oh, I know. If I mention acid, salt, or sweet, or fat, there's a great book and a phenomenal TV series, very short TV series called Salt, Fat, Acid, Heat, by chef and writer Samin Nosrat. I cannot recommend that enough. She is a joy to listen to, and her perspective on cooking, if you look at the salt, fat, acid, heat lens, will blow your mind, and I absolutely recommend it. It has more crystallized the way I approach food. We're combining textures and flavors and all that. Salt, Fat, Acid, Heat by Samin Nosrat. look for the documentary series, have a glass of wine, enjoy it. You will not be disappointed. Lime juice. Mirin. So you can see this is kind of thick and syrupy, but it is sweetened sake. This brand says it is traditional Japanese, but in your international grocery stores, you will find sweet cooking wine or sweet rice wine in a whole world of thicknesses, viscosities, colors, a variety of flavors, some that taste more like sake, and feel free to cook with sake, it's great. I'd rather drink it. But some that feel more like sake, some that, like this one, are just a little sweeter. This one has yeast extract in it. I grabbed it because I needed some, and it was convenient. But Mirin, sweet cooking wine, sweet sake to cook with, something like that. Recommended for your kitchen. Sesame oil. Get a big bottle of it, use it. Sesame oil has a lower burning and smoking temperature than, say, olive oil or even especially canola oil. So, watch your temperatures on this. Don't overcook it because you can burn this, but I'm drooling just sniffing this. But sesame oil is as much a flavoring and an aromatic as a lubricant non-stick for your pan. So get sesame oil. And this too, there's a whole world of sesame oils to try. Try them all. Buy little bottles, find ones you like, buy bigger bottles of that. Rice vinegar. When you get sushi from restaurants, it's not just rice. There's actually rice vinegar and sometimes even other ingredients mixed into the rice. So that book, Salt, Fat, Acid, Heat, I talk about acids, vinegars, lime juices, that sort of stuff, will add a brightness to your dish. Little goes a long way, but put it on French fries. See what you think. Rice vinegar. Bonito flakes. I all of a sudden can't remember the name in Japanese. Shame on me, but they add a great fishiness, a great seafood flavor to things. You see them a lot in Japanese cuisine. And when I'm making takoyaki, making just rice and sprinkle this on rice, bonito flakes are a fantastic thing. In Japanese cooking, there's so much influence of seafood, of fish stock. Oh! Shame on me, this should be out. Hondashi, or dashi stock, fish stock. It's kind of a little powder you just mix into water and then you make fish stock. Instead of using vegetable stock, chicken stock, beef stock, that sort of stuff, try fish stock for some things and see how that changes your recipe. A foundational ingredient in Japanese cuisine, but I'm sure many others. But I love this stuff. Bonito flakes, hondashi. I want to say this is katsuboshi, but I don't think that's the right word for it. Fish stuff. More fish stuff. Miso paste. I use this for so many things, and there is a world of miso paste to explore. Miso is kind of salty fermented soybean paste. This kind has, this is called koji. It has chopped up grains in it. I like this koshi, which is the smooth miso paste. You make miso soup, a little spoonful of this, boiling water, and you're done. But I mix this with, this and sweet soy sauce for an amazing glaze that can go on all kinds of stuff. Mix some of this kind of 1-to-1, spread it on some vegetables before you roast them. You will thank me. Miso paste. This is sushi nori. This is that seaweed that you see wrapped around sushi. You can shred it up like this, and it becomes, this is roasted also, and you can use it like a seasoning on top of things. You can cut it into bigger pieces and have it add a bunch of flavorings. But this is just seaweed. So it's sushi seaweed, but it comes in like a sheet of paper. It doesn't fold very well, so don't try any origami with it, but you can cut it with a pair of scissors into strips or squares or cute little faces for decorative lunchboxes. But seaweed. And more seaweed, this is called Dashi Kombu. It's basically giant sheets, huge leaves of seaweed. Like, these are, kelp is a giant plant. And so these are like sheet of paper sized. These are about the same size. This is shredded up like traditional paper is made. This is a single leaf cut to this size. But you can use it in your stock. You know, break one of these in half, chuck it in your boiling water, little miso paste, little fish stock, and it will add flavor to the soup that you're making. Or use that stock and then boil noodles or boil vegetables in fish stock or kombu stock, and you'll add a tremendous depth of flavor to what you're making. And forgive me if I get excited. I'm clearly passionate about this. On the more seasoning end of things, this is called furikake. It is rice seasoning. It's just sort of this, you might be able to see, it's like dried bonito seaweed seasoning. This is bits of dried salmon, and you can sprinkle this on plain rice. You can sprinkle it on anything, really. But sprinkling this on rice adds flavor to it, makes it fun to eat. If you have yet to appreciate the subtle differences in different kinds of rice, try some furikake and brighten it up a little bit. This is basic Chinese 5-spice powder. I don't want to comment a lot about authentic Chinese cuisine. I grew up watching Martin Yan, Chef Yan, on PBS, the show Yan Can Cook. Chef Yan with Yan Can Cook would use Chinese 5-spice powder. And there's, I don't know if it's actually only 5 spices, but a little bit goes a long way. It's very aromatic, so it will influence the smell more than the taste. But taste is a part of smell, or smell is a part of taste. So it's hard to describe exactly what Chinese 5-spice powder does, but a little goes a long way. A single jar of this will last me a couple of years because I don't use it all that often, but I do love using it. And toasted sesame seeds or roasted sesame seeds. Regular sesame seeds are fine. They add a good bit of flavor, like sesame oil, but getting them pre-toasted adds a nuttiness and a richness to stuff. I use these roasted sesame seeds all the time. And that's kind of it for the East Asian, and I use that very broadly because I don't have any other way to categorize it. East Asian influence to my cooking palette. And then the Western, Southwest, Tex-Mex, Latino, Mexican, there's so many influences, it's embarrassing to try and stuff it into one label, but Western palate. Olive oil, medium smoking point. If you can get a better olive oil, your food will taste better. That's really all there is to it. In the acid realm of things, there's all different kinds of other vinegars you could use. Apple cider, red wine, regular white vinegar. Try balsamic vinegar. It's not as strong in the acid department. There's a lot of flavor to it, and you can do a lot with balsamic vinegar and sweet soy sauce, for example. But I use a lot of balsamic vinegar in cooking. Cilantro? Excuse me. I've heard a couple of places cilantro also called Chinese parsley. Cilantro and parsley are related plants. I don't think Chinese parsley and cilantro are the same. Your mileage may vary. And if you have experience with this, please let me know. I would love to hear more about this. But cilantro is one of those plants that you either love it or you hate it. My sister thinks cilantro tastes like soap. She'll eat stuff with cilantro in it, but if you really go heavy on it, she'll be like, "Bah, this tastes like soap." I love cilantro, and I can understand how she thinks it tastes like soap, but that's not unappealing to me. So, cilantro, especially fresh cilantro, it's very pungent, very floral, and will add a lot to your Western cooking. So try it. Like the restaurant chain namesake, Chipotle. Chipotles are jalapeno peppers that have been smoked and then usually ground up. Chipotles in adobo sauce. Should have gotten this out sooner. Close. I take them out of the can because it's easier for me to use them this way. Chipotles in adobo sauce. They're these smoky, spicy, but not like kick your butt spicy. Smoky, spicy peppers in an incredibly flavorful sauce. And then those peppers by themselves ground up into chipotle powder and often found mixed into hot sauces. These are vinegar-based hot sauces. But Chipotle is great. You can use them to add some spiciness to things for sure, but what they really add, especially the Chipotle and adobo sauce, really adds a richness, very earthy kind of smoky flavor to things. Little goes a long way. I like to use a lot more than not, but if you have friends or family that are sensitive to spices, you might want to go easy on it. Instead of chipotles, if they're really sensitive to spice, try smoked paprika. Paprika is, I think, if I remember right, the Hungarian word for pepper, but smoked paprika. Smoked paprika will add that smokiness and add a good depth of flavor to things. It's very aromatic, but it won't add the spicy spiciness that Chipotle stuff will. I use them both together. This is Jamaican style curry. Curry is a whole realm of food, a whole realm of flavor. There's Japanese, Indonesian, Jamaican, curries from the Indian subcontinent, which I think is more based on the tikka masala blend of spices. Curry is a huge, huge subject, which I'm not nearly remotely qualified to touch. But I do love me some basic curry powder. And again, this is Jamaican style curry powder. Sprinkle this on some cauliflower, toss it in, cut up cauliflower, toss it in oil, sprinkle this, a little basil, and roast it in the oven, 450 degrees for about 20 minutes, maybe half an hour, and you will have some great roast curry cauliflower. Very, very simple, very useful spice. It's more of an aromatic than a flavoring. Little goes a long way, but get yourself some curry powder and play with it. What else? Another foundational ingredient in Western cooking, and you heard me mention it with the chipotles, is adobo. Adobo is another whole range of flavoring: salt, pepper, onion, white pepper, onion, garlic, salt, garlic, turmeric, and oregano, This is just one version of it. There's a whole bunch of adobo seasonings that you absolutely should try. It does have salt in it, so I don't often add salt to foods because everything else that I add has salt already in it. But instead of salt, try adobo seasoning. And cumin. Cumin is a seed pod of a plant that smells but isn't. Has a kind of a natural, like, earthy smokiness to it. The best way I can describe it, it's almost the smell of the forest, of a dry forest. Not mulch, because I hate mulch, but this is sort of this floral smokiness to it. That best way, if you want to know what a strong cumin influence does, think chili. Any kind of chili uses a lot of cumin, or tacos. That taco seasoning, chili seasoning, very, very heavily influenced with cumin. I love this stuff, and I use it as a cross-pollinator to add kind of a smokiness to other Eastern foods, Eastern flavors that I mix in. And then some basic ingredients in the middle. Basil. This says organic. I don't really care. I use a lot of basil. If you can find it, Thai basil. Thai basil is different, similar but very different from European basil. If you can find Thai basil, which is usually in Eastern international ends of markets, get it. Regular European basil is fantastic. I use it all the time. I've recently discovered just basic freeze-dried herbs. This is spring onion chives, and it's diced, but they're freeze-dried, so they still have all of that oniony flavor and just burst right back in. Not as good as fresh, but it is the next best thing, is freeze-dried herbs. Not just like regular dried, air-dried herbs, but freeze-dried herbs. They're dried super fast. They keep a whole lot of their flavor. If you can find them, use them. Wow. Minced garlic. When a recipe says a clove of garlic, I usually put in a teaspoon of this. When a recipe says more than that, I grab a big spoon and get a fat scoop. I love garlic. Garlic is good for you, probably. I don't care. Garlic is delicious. I get it pre-minced in the jars. If you get whole heads of garlic from the store, you can roast them. Just kind of knock the tops off. They're kind of pointy and a bulb. Just knock that top off, drizzle a little olive oil, and roast them slowly for a while. And your house will smell amazing for starters, but you'll get this super deep flavor and sweetness pulled out of that garlic. Try it with the larger heads of garlic, like elephant garlic would be great. Keep the bulbs whole when you do it, and then once you've roasted them for a good long time, you can just squish them out like butter. It's so good. And last but not least, in my culinary home kitchen palette, is a flavor that I was raised with, that is local to this area. This is, when you hear about authentic Maryland cooking, you hear about Chesapeake Bay, crabs, oysters, but that's all based on this seasoning, Old Bay. Growing up at my dad's house, and forgive me if I get a little emotional about this, because there's so strong memories associated with this. Growing up, we had a metal tin, about yay tall, of Old Bay that he had since before zip codes were officially introduced into the United States postal system. It was so old. But we used it. And he cherished it, and he got me to cherish it because this is food from home. This is food, a flavor from where my roots come from. My family has lived in the Chesapeake Bay watershed for at least 11 generations, maybe 13. When I go to the Chesapeake Bay, you know, that's my blood, that's my heart. The woods and forest around here and the creeks and rivers that feed the Chesapeake Bay, those are my veins. The trees are my bones. You know, the rocks are the foundation of my being from here. And this is what here tastes like. Old Bay is a really fantastic seasoning. So if you were anywhere around the world and you were like, man, I've heard of this Old Bay, I would like to try it, let me know. I will send you some Old Bay wherever the heck you are, because I want to share this with the planet. Yeah, Old Bay is fantastic. And I think this is, when I think of home, you know, finding comfort in food, I don't care what it is, sprinkle some Old Bay on it and I'll be happy. I don't need much. Wine. I like to cook with alcohol. I like to cook with wine. There's, in my grocery store, this brand is called Tisdale. This is their Pinot Noir. It's a very basic California wine. Just a little sweet, just a little tart. I love this. But when you see people cooking with wine, pouring wine onto roasts, or making sauces, that sort of stuff, and you see someone say, oh, I'm going to grab this cooking wine. Chef Mario Batali, I don't know how many years ago, I was watching one of his shows, something he said stuck in my head as such a simple thing. He said, if you're not going to drink the wine, why would you cook with it? What's the point of putting something that you wouldn't drink into your food? If you're going to cook with wine, they have cooking wines, you know, no shade to them, but like, spend a little bit more, just a little bit more. This was $5 for this whole bottle. Spend a little bit more on wine you'll drink, that you enjoy. It doesn't have to be super fancy. You know, don't spend $20, $30 on a bottle that you're going to pour into a pot roast. But, you know, instead of springing for a $3 bottle of cooking wine you'll use a little bit of and leave in your cabinet for 3 years, spend $5, pour half of it into your sauce, pour the others into glasses and share it. I agree with this rule. Don't cook with something you won't drink. So, looks like I have an hour and 16 minutes. I have a little bit more prep work to do for dinner tonight. I'm going to cut up some cauliflower and carrots and make that sweet soy and miso glaze for them, and then roast them. And I think it's going to be great. We got some rice to go with it. But yeah, so thank you for hanging out with me. Welcome to my kitchen. And again, that book and the series by Samin Nosrat, Salt, Fat, Acid, Heat, I cannot recommend them enough. But yeah, so thanks for hanging out with me. I hope you are safe and well fed wherever you are. I wish you mucho, mucho, mucho amor, and good luck.